All right, welcome back. We're back again with that AJS. Just had a look in the book. I'm getting ready to adjust the valves now. And it says right here, tappet clearance, this is for both, is 6/1000 of an inch. So, and I'm going to need that too, 12 thou for the breaker point gap, even though that's a distributor. I think that's what I set it at. But anyway, 6/1000 of an inch for the clearances on these rockers. Now that's what you get in there when you take these rocker covers off. It's just two simple little bolts that hold those in place. And as you can see, there's no adjustment screws on these. These are very reminiscent of the Honda 450 in that this shaft, the rocker shaft, is actually eccentric. So what you do is you loosen off the nut on the other side and you turn the rocker shaft like either way until you get the correct clearance under the valve. Now you can just see me disturbing the oil under the cup there on that valve. There is a little bit of clearance here. I think it feels right, but I'm going to get my feelers out and just make sure that they're all 6 thou. If I need to adjust them, I will. Okay, what have I done with the feeler gauges now? Oh, there they are right there. All right, let's just slip that 6 thou gauge in under the face of this tappet. Oh, that's just a nice snug 6 thou. I can push it back and forth, so that's great. This one here, that one's really loose. Let's just see where that's at. That one's, it's not really loose, but it's looser than it should be. Let me just try 10 thou for fun, see if that'll go in there. Yeah, 10 thou is going in, but just going in. So I'm going to need to adjust this, that eccentric shaft on the rockers to get that down to 6/1000 of an inch. So I'll obtain a little, it's just a little tiny nut that holds that pin in place. So I'll slack that off and rotate this shaft with a large screwdriver and get that into position. Okay, now with my large and mighty wrench here, I've loosened off the little lock nut that holds the shaft in place from turning. And so now I'm going to turn that shaft to get the clearance I need. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but it should. You should be able to see that moving up and down as I rotate that. So what I want to do, take my 6 thou feeler, rotate that until it's open a little more, turn it until it just fits under there. Okay, and then lock that little nut back up. So I'll take my wrench, that little nut back up, and with any luck, which I frequently don't have, that should be perfect. Just tighten that little nut a little tiny bit more. I don't want to run the risk of stripping it. Okay, that should be good. Feeler again. Get up under there. Yep, there we go. I can move it back and forth. It's just the same as this one now. So that is the valves adjusted on the left cylinder. Now I'll rotate the engine so that it's at the top of the compression stroke or at the point of firing on the right cylinder, and I'll check those valves the same way as I just did this one. Okay, I've taken you off pause again. Rotated the engine. This one's at the top dead center on the firing position. I can feel that there's a little bit of motion on those valves. So let's just see. Oh, that's a nice clearance there. Not quite as tight as it was on the other side, but pretty darn good. Let's try the exhaust valve. Oh, and that's perfect right there, yeah. So I don't need to adjust these two valves at all. Just a bit of, what do you call that? A bit of satisfaction or comfort knowing that they're all set now. I can put that in my logbook, so that the valves are set. I will, these gaskets look pretty good. I think I'll just put a little bit of Harlemar maybe on the surfaces, and this one of course is torn. I'll have to replace that. I could just put that metal to metal with some 3-bond on the face of it. I'm sure that would seal that up really well. Maybe that's what I'll do. I did that with my ES2. I put 3-bond on the top end with no gaskets, and I have no leaks up there at all. So yeah, maybe that's what I'll do here. Well, this brings up another point I wanted to mention about modifications. These engines breathe through a little one-way check valve on the end of the crankshaft. And in theory, that's a good idea, you know, because it's in the center of everything, but it tends to blow quite a bit of oil out the center of the crankshaft. There is a lot of oil mist and stuff in the engine when it's running. So it's going to be pushing out past that little breather valve like it should, but it goes into the chain case here. Well, the chain case, that's fine. It keeps it full of oil, but the trouble is it keeps it too full of oil, especially if you have a chain case that actually does not leak, like this one here, which is very, very lucky. But that's why I hate taking that cover apart, because it's so hard to get it sealed up again. Anyway, I modified the way the engine breathes. I put a connection on the top of the right-hand exhaust. Could be the left-hand exhaust, could be the intake valves too. But I put a good size breather pipe on that, and I hooked it onto this hose right here, which just goes down in front of the drivetrain. So if there's any oil coming out, it will go directly onto that old drive chain and keep it lubricated. And it prevents the primary case from overfilling, which prevents it from leaving a huge puddle on the ground wherever you happen to park it. And it's all right if you park it somewhere where you always park it in your home, but it's kind of embarrassing when you park it somewhere, you know, where someone can see this half a quart of oil all over the ground or whatever leaking out of it. But in any case, that's what I did to prevent that chain case from overfilling, and it seems to work really well, because the chain case does not overfill anymore. And of course, like everything else from these periods, there's no seal on the back of that chain case, so if you get too much oil in there, it just weeps out all over the ground. So anyway, I will get these covers ready to put back on. I've decided I'm going to give them a little polish and just use that good old 3-bond on the surfaces rather than a gasket. There's tons of room under there, so you're not going to run out of clearance with anything. So that's what I'm going to do. Well, here we are way down underneath the intake manifold, where everything is easy to see and easy to get at. Anyway, even if the magneto was on here, it would be out here around about where my fingers are, but it would still be a difficult spot to get at regardless. But at least it's not sitting under a dynamo. That's up there, right? But anyhow, the cap has been removed. Cap looks real nice inside. I just gave that a quick spray out with that old points cleaner. Same with the outside there, so it's no longer oily from sitting in behind the cylinder. It's just dry and sort of I don't know, brownish black looking, I guess, but it's in good shape, no cracks or anything like that, so it's good to go. Underneath that, you will find this little thing called a rotor button. Now, this surface right here is where the spark jumps across to the pegs on the distributor, and sometimes you'll have a bit of a, I don't know, a bit of a build up there from the spark jumping across. Just clean that up with a bit of sandpaper. It's not hard to do. Set that aside for now, and just so you know, in this particular distributor, there's a carbon brush in the center, and there's the posts. Come on, focus, baby. Focus. Come on. Anyway, you can see the brass fittings, even though the damn camera won't focus right now, but there we go. Must have had to swear at it, I guess. There's two of those in there. And that's where the spark jumps across to the spark plug wire and goes from the wire to the spark plug. But way down in there, I'm just going to point to it with a screwdriver. Here are the ignition points right here. Right in there. Now I've got them cleaned up. I did my usual little trick with the double-sided garnet paper, drug that through it to make sure they were nice and clean. Now I have turned the engine so that the shoe on the points is up on the highest part of the cam, which is right here. This is your ignition cam. So that gap, I think I set that at 12 thou. If it's still at 12 thou, I'll be happy. If not, well, then I'll have to adjust the little adjuster screws there and adjust that gap so it's at 12 thou again, and that will put my ignition timing back where it should be. So let me just get my feeler gauges out and test that. Right, so I've got my handy dandy little 12 thou feeler gauge here, nice and thin so I can get in there, and I'm going to reach that in there and just see if that's going to slide in between those points or not. My God, that's perfect. I honestly think that sometimes just cleaning the points, just dressing them with a bit of sandpaper like that will actually get them to the gap that you want. But actually, it's a little on the tight side. Let's try that again. It is a little on the tight side. Yeah, just a little. All right, so I'm going to loosen off the adjusting screws and just open that gap up just a little bit more, because that would make the engine slightly retarded. It wouldn't come up on full advance that way. So yeah, I'm going to check that out. Meanwhile, I'm just going to put this on pause. Okay, I gave the points just a tiny bit of a tweak. It might have been like down around 10 or 11 thousandths. It wasn't very much at all. Probably could have got away with it the way it was actually, but anyway, I've got the rotor button stuck back on there. There's a certain position that it fits in. There's a little groove in the end of the shaft. And then all I have to do is put the distributor cap back in place. Hopefully I'm not getting in the way of that camera. There's a couple of spring clips that you put back down, and I have loosened off the cap so that I can adjust it and get at it where I need to. I've marked the distributor so I know exactly where it's supposed to go, so that's not a problem. So anyway, oh yes, and don't forget to lube your ignition cam in there inside the distributor while you're doing all this stuff. And, well, that takes care of that part. Okay, let me think now. Distributor's all back together. The clamp has been set so the distributor is in its former position where it was before. So that's a fuel line, by the way, hanging there. But anyway, so the ignition system should be all set to go for a couple of thousand more miles. I did pull out those spark plugs. They're a little grubby because the engine does lose a bit of oil, but nothing excessive. And in any case, it's only 16, and those are old plugs. I've had them in there for several years, so I'm going to change those out and put some fresh spark plugs in it. I got curious because I have never checked the compression in this engine to see what the readings are. I'm getting 115 psi on each cylinder, which is pretty comparable to the ES2, which gets about the same. So I don't think there's anything wrong to worry about with this thing. It's that low because the compression itself is low. It's 6.5 to 1, the compression ratio on this bike. So you're not going to get any kind of readings like 125 or 150, you know, with 6 to 1 compression. About 120 is maybe the most you're going to see. So 115 is quite suitable for something that's been in service for a few years. So anyhow, I will proceed, I think, with putting the gas tank back on. No reason why I shouldn't do that. I can't think of anything else I need to do to the engine before I start it up. So yeah, let's see what happens next. Well, now it's time, I guess, to get that battery out of here. I'll show you what I mentioned about having a homemade battery case made up for that. So I'll show you what I've got in under here. Those are the toggles that hold this metal strap together. Very simple little affair, but it works quite well. Just put fresh oil in the oil tank as well. I'm not going to be changing the filters because I did that last fall before I put it away. So let's just open this up. Now that's the real simple little affair for a battery cover. It's just basically a piece of sheet metal. But anyway, get that out of the way. There is my battery. But the thing is, it's not really a battery. It's just a box made to hold a battery. So I'll go get my little battery, put it in there, and put this back in. Anyway, I made one of these years ago. I was going to make a mold to produce fiberglass battery shells, right, that I could just use to drop the replacement batteries in, but the wooden one came out looking so good and it fooled so many people that I thought, well, geez, I might as well just make them out of wood from now. So yeah, there's my little bit of woodwork on my motorcycle. So anyway, I'm going to put the battery in that. I'll show you what that looks like after it's in, and then we'll be one step closer to trying to start this thing up. I'm just going to slip that little battery into this little case, just like that. Tuck the vent hose down in there. Stuff that little bit of foam down in so that it doesn't wiggle around too much. Maybe I'll poke it in with a screwdriver. There we go. Now, I want to put my wires in such a way as they, whoops, put this the wrong way around, look at me. All right, there we go. That's going to go like that. And that's going to go in that little groove right there. Put the top on. I think this is the right way. I'm not really sure, but I'll find out in a minute. Oops, let's just get that. There we go. Top's on. Valve's on. This little groove is there to clear that that vent pipe on the battery there. So anyway, just put that on there like that. Anyway, there we go. Now it looks like a real old Lucas battery or something. Put the case cover on over that. Just make sure that none of the metal parts touch anything important. There we go. Close her up. I like to move it back just slightly. Gives me a little room for working around the carburetor and that sort of thing. Then I just take these two toggles here. One goes in behind. One goes in from the front. Screw that bolt in there. I'll grab my ratchet, tighten that up, and that's it for having the battery in. Okay, it's dark in here for a reason. I'm going to check and see if I've got some decent fire on those spark plugs before I even think about trying to start the bike. So, let's see now. Turn the switch on. And we'll kick her over and see. Yep, I got fire in both plugs. Not sure if I've got the one from the right hand side in a position where you can see it, so I'll move it over here. She's sparking. So that much is good to go. Switch off. Overhead lights back on. There. Now I just gotta check the fluid in the primary down there, which is quite simple. I just remove that cover. If it's level with the bottom of the hole, and she's got plenty in her. And just check the fluid in the transmission. And I should be all set to steam up, or at least give it a hook and see if it will go. Okay, here we are. We're just having a little check on the transmission fluid level. This bolt right here that I'm tapping on is actually your full level plug, but I find that's a bit too high. I like to fill the transmission to the point where the oil level is about even with the bottom of the kick shaft. That way, like I said, this is pretty typical of old bikes. There's no seals in that part of the transmission at all. There is a seal on the output by the main shaft sprocket, but I just like to bring it up to about that level there. That way it's less likely to just run out of that bushing and run all over your exhaust pipe and stuff. So anyway, if I'm right, I think that bike is ready to try a start. So I'll get this camera set up in the tripod and open the big front door and see what happens.